Hello.
Good evening, Kelly. This is Michael Vera with Late Night in the Midlands. I want to welcome you to the show. How are you?
Great, Michael. How are you?
I am doing just fine, as long as the weather lets us talk tonight. So far, so good, but I'm glad to have you here.
Well, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, you bet. Well, I thought a great place to start would be with a little background, and what got you involved in this to a point where, Akashic Records.
In all that I do?
In all that you do, yes.
In all that I do? Well, I guess it all began. I'll fast forward from birth to about 29, I guess. That's when Saturn return hits, apparently, in most Western astrology charts. And my life was changing and going through a separation and looking for more peace and balance in my home and in my life and with my children. And actually was introduced to feng shui first. Mm-hmm. And it piqued my curiosity and got me moving in the direction of energy and healing and transformation, among other things. And it interested me enough that I wanted to offer that to others as well. So I started studying from the perspective of being a consultant, etc. And then years down the pike, I was actually teaching for my first master teacher, Grandmaster Raymond Lowe. And in my class, one of my students had just finished taking an Akashic Record training. And I'd never heard of this before. And she asked if she could do a session for me. So I was a little skeptical, wondering, who are you and what are they? And she answered to enough of my curiosity that I said yes. And during the session, my Akashic masters and teachers and loved ones requested that I actually take the training. So it was unplanned, so to speak, and I did. And that was actually right after September 11th in 2001. And that journey took me into not only reading my own records, but then reading the records of another. And I guess you could say, in a way, it's history from there. But what I've discovered, and it's interesting how everything kind of dovetails one thing into the other. Realized that what the Chinese speak of is this alignment of heaven, human, and earth. And the way I was looking at this trilogy, these three worlds, is, feng shui is actually about the earth energy, the study of the earth energy and how it impacts and influences human life. And the heaven energy, I've associated really with Akashic Records soul readings, where we're bringing in this other dimension and perspective. And it's also, to them, our astrology chart. So I've actually studied and learned Chinese astrology, which is a very unique system that amazingly is interwoven actually into feng shui. It's the only system I know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did I lose you? I sure did. Either I lost her or lost me. I don't know which of which. Oh, I don't even know if I'm live right now, folks. Let's see what happened. I don't know. Until somebody tells me something, it's nights like this that I just like to just close the shop and say to hell with it all. It's just, you try to get things done right. You try to, and it's just one thing after another. I'm live. Oh, all right. Well, now that the show's already been destroyed, we'll try to salvage what we can. I'm telling you, it's getting worse, sir. You watch. It's going to knock us right off. Let's see here. Yeah, I lost a guest, so I'm trying to get her back. So hang on with us for a moment, folks. I'm trying not to go into a rant and fit. Trying. All right. Oh, man, that ain't good, folks. I'm telling you, I'm sitting around a whole bunch of windows right now, and it is not good. All right, let me go ahead and get her on. I'm not editing this either, Dark Matter, so, you're getting it as is.
There you are again.
Well, hello. Yeah, I think we lost you there. Just as the lightning flashed.
I have no idea where we were.
Well, you were talking.
I was on astrology. I don't know where you are.
Yeah, I believe you were talking about the training that you had, and I think it was right about that time. I think you did get into astrology, and then that was the end of it. So
I'm energetically working on the weather patterns happening where you are, helping to calm them down. How's that?
Well, I hope you succeed.
So, just to pick up where I left off, so to me, what's fascinating about the astrology piece is that our personal birth data directly is reflected and has a relationship with our space, our living environment, based on the directions and the orientations, etc. So it's a really unique system that is added to what others may, to the classical system of feng shui. So that was fascinating for me to learn and discover, and I enjoy bringing that level into consultations that I do. And then there's just one last piece, so to speak, which I call Akashic Reiki. And it's working with the actual energy body, the physical body, and that's the third component that's really coming forward now in my practice, in my life, working with people at that level. One of the things I call it is soul integration, but it's also the transformation of all the physical level, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. So that's kind of everything in a nutshell, where I've been and what my journey's looking like so far.
Well, at what point, I'm kind of probably going to jump around a little bit here, but the Akashic Records fascinates me, just the whole idea of it. And I'm wondering, at what point, how did that come along? How did you discover you're able to do something like that? And what exactly are you doing when you do it?
Great questions. We all have a natural birthright to access our records. In the capacity, actually, I'll say that I do. Because the truth is, we are our living records. They are in our DNA. We are in connection with them all the time. Perhaps the greater question is, to what degree are we interacting with them on a conscious level? So when I access the records, I do it with the sacred prayer. Now, this prayer is actually a very unique word combination that has scientifically been proven to show brainwave patterns altered from the natural waking state, which is beta, to alpha and theta. So the more attuned one is to being in that brainwave length, that those other dimensional realms, the more expanded one can become, more attuned one can become to that field. So over time, I have expanded, shall we say. I teach this, and people feel that shift within them. There's when the doubting mind, when the fears are allowed to relax through just breath or just calming exercises, this greater field can be accessed. So everybody can do this. I'm not special. I'm not unique, although I am gifted and have a talent and have worked at it, for it, shall we say. To access, it's really a language of light. It's a language that we know at a soul level and bring forth through the symbols of words to convey messages and relay information. But the first level of it truly is about the energetic information, even prior to the words being used. Does that make sense when I say that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So
is it like, I mean, does it go right hand in hand with psychic abilities, or is this something totally different?
I would have to say it's different. Let me see if I can figure out how to explain why.
Two different channels?
Well, it's, how do I qualify this? My experience, right? My experience, I can only speak from my experience. My experience of the records is such that it is held in a field that is beyond the mind's desire for a certain outcome. So it's beyond the what will happen to the potential of all that can be. So many times, the psychic realm can read the dimension that's closest to the physical field, and what is often offered is information in, I will call it almost, it's not static, but it can leave the recipient choiceless. Here's what's coming, here's what's going to happen. And it's not all the time, right? Some of the time can take away that choice. And in the field beyond that is, I don't know if I can say it, is all potential. And the beings of light that I work with do not take away our free will, do not create forms of fear, are completely about empowering the one before them, and their language, their heart-centeredness call forth within the individual their best. And in that they can align to the choices and decisions they find most empowering to themselves. So I guess that's kind of how I would respond to that. And even, when we look at intuition, intuition is the Akashic realm can affirm one's intuition, where one has that inner sense of knowingness, and that's what we're ultimately building. So they're like a team, if you will, when that level of clarity is being requested, or even greater understanding then that is accessible by the individual. So what more can I know? What is there to know that I'm not tapping into? But again, they don't take away, they don't disempower. They are not, the records are there actually to explore oneself, one's personal journey, one's soul's evolution, one's past, present, and potential for the future. It's a dynamic that one can go to when one might be at a crossroads or needing that extra insight, wisdom, and guidance. Makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so what are the Akashic Records? Why are they there, and why would we want to access them?
So the Akash is actually a Sanskrit word, and it means primordial substance. So it's from which all life emanates. And we create our own individual record when we individuated from source. And so it's a recording. It's like an essence that has the capacity to record everything, every thought, every deed. So sometimes it's very interesting because a thought can have a very powerful impression upon the field as an action. It records our past lives as we understand them in linearity when we speak and look at it from a third dimensional perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Its function is for our review. So every spiritual tradition refers to it. For example, in the Bible, it's referred to as the Book of Life. And so oftentimes people get concerned about, for example, Judgment Day. And yet the judgment is ourselves looking and reflecting upon our own choices and how we impacted or influenced another. And what's beautiful about the records is it records truth. And where we might have a misperception of one's actions or one's decisions or a past, let's say, experience with a parent, and we created a belief system around it, and then later in life we go back to investigate because we've got this pattern that's been developing around it. And when we go into the records to get the truth of the situation, we may find that the parent's true intent was not what the child believed it to be. And that's where we also then have the capacity in that moment to rewrite our own records. I often like referring to it as like the AMC theaters where you see the tiles kind of rippling across the screen. So that in any moment when we shift our understanding, we're shifting our entire being around that experience, which changes the dynamic of everything that was related to it, changing the pattern from being something that is, let's say, disharmonious to our being and our life to one that we've released that belief, we've released that perspective for a greater perspective and understanding. And that type of wisdom can be forthcoming. There's also where we can look at dreams, the meanings of dreams, the gifts and talents that we have, beings of light, which are called the masters, for example, are those who have mastered certain skills that we might be working with ourselves, such as discernment or personal power, working on abandonment issues and things of that nature. Teachers can be just like we sit in a university today and we learn certain subjects, whether it's herbology or geography or science and things of that nature. So the records hold all subject matters, all influences, all that we could ask about. The potential to tap into that wisdom is there. And there's the collective consciousness as well. So there's the essence of it being in the subconscious, and we're accessing, but it's also the superconscious where it brings us higher wisdom. And all for the conscious mind to awaken the wisdom within us, that this is that which we have a right to know. And many of us access this through meditation, through prayer, through deja vu. Very good astrologers as well can bring forth that information within one's Akash.
I see. All right. Well, okay. All right. So hang on for a moment. We've got to take a break here. We're going to try to clear some stuff up because I'm having a really hard time following you. The audio is like in and out, muffled kind of, and it's yes.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, it's okay. I mean, we'll try to see if we can work that out. But hang on with us for a moment. We'll be right back. This is Late Night in the Midlands here. But as you can hear, I'm speaking to you now. My sound is good. There's nothing wrong with it. and her connection's really bad. It's just not working. So I think I'm going to skip it. I'm not going to try to keep reconnecting with her tonight. Unfortunately, I really want to talk to her, but we're going to keep having dropouts and distortion, and I just cannot do it that way. I mean, eventually I'll become a bear. I don't want to become a bear. We've already got one of those in the chat room. So, all right. So that what we'll do, I guess, is I'll bring on my trusty partner in crime here, Ira, and we'll open lines if anybody wants to call in. We were getting a lot of calls when people thought they were going to get some Akashic record readings, but boy, when you talk about other things, the truth, people don't want none of that. So all right, but let's get on with it. We'll open lines though, and sorry folks, I'm just a little bit crabby here with the issues. Ira, welcome aboard.
Hello.
How's it going? Hey, you sound...
what a night.
You sound good. You sound nice and clear.
Cool. That'll work.
Yeah, so that's...
Imagine that.
I
No
know.
cell phone.
Imagine. It's crazy, but yeah, I'd lost a guest again. Honestly, I did. I didn't get rid of her.
Yeah. Well, I could hear, it was at kind of tolerable levels. When she first came on, it sounded great, but as the call was progressing, it was just getting worse and worse. I don't know if it was her connection with you or something with her end or whatever, but yeah, it was getting pretty bad.
Well, I think it's obvious that it was on her end because we're talking right now and don't sound nothing like that. Nothing against her. I mean, probably might have storms in her area
exactly.
too. I don't know.
She might just have a bad DSL connection or something to the internet, and these kind of things happen.
Yeah, so I'm letting her know now that we'll reschedule. I mean, I'm not hating or anything. I'm just saying it's the technology that ticks me off.
Yeah, well, you've already had a rough one due to the storms that you've got going on down there. You've in the chat room we've been listening, and the sound's been cutting here and there and that sort of thing. When a major lightning strike or something comes along, we can tell that it happened. So,
well, yeah, and it's and a lot of times people say, well, hey, it's good enough because let's face it, when I used to listen to Art Bell on AM radio, 15 years ago, I remember it cutting in and out, and I went through the headaches because I wanted to listen. And so I understand how people say, oh, it sounds fine. Yeah, it's good enough because you want to listen. But I don't want to sit here and waste 3 hours and have audio that's so bad that nobody else wants to listen to it. I mean, you know what I mean? So
right, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the first thing people do is complain. And they have a right to. If they're going to listen to it, they got to expect it. I mean, little things here and there you expect. It's going to happen. But, folks, my job is to follow a conversation and be part of it. And if I can't hear what the other person's saying to me, that's why you were getting some dead spots. You're listening. You hear it get quiet. Got quiet because I had no idea what she said.
5 minutes later trying to figure out, what was that last part?
Yeah, I'm like, well, let me just ask another question and maybe I'll hear it at some point. And that's basically, yeah. I don't want to do a show like that. That's not fair to her, me, or the listeners. So.
Yep, exactly.
But anyways, Ira, I don't know what might be on your radar right now. Anything that you want to get on? If you want to talk about Akashic Records, I'm up for that too. So.
Well, I have some affiliation with those myself because of the things that I've been able to do over the years and the whole twin thing. When I talk about me connecting up like to the universal consciousness field, that is actually the Akashic Records. So it's kind of one and the same, just a different name for it, basically. So. Yeah, if you want to go that direction, I can do that. No problem.
Yeah, sure. I think the Akashic Records is, I used to be skeptical of that kind of stuff, but I think there is that realm. I think there is that, that filing cabinet, if you will, that never-ending filing cabinet.
Well, that's the way I look at it. I put things more into like computer terminology just because that's the background that I come from. So the way that I look at things is... the universe, again, for lack of better words, the source, creation, whatever you want to call it, it has all of these different hard drives that are set up, like the universal consciousness field, the Akashic Records. It's all just the big hard drive that's on the computer system that the universe really is. And so just like a computer system's hard drive, all of the operating system is installed on there. All of the pictures are there, the videos, your documents, all that kind of information is all stored in different parts and portions of this hard drive. And there are certain people, and I think that everybody can. I think everybody is inborn with this ability to do so. But I think that with some people, we can access some of those files. All we do basically, like how I always describe it to people, is I guess I double click on the icon on my desktop, quote unquote, to bring up whatever records I'm looking for, and I can pull them out and give the information that's relating to it. Now, I'm not as good with it as some other people are, but it is something that I've been able to do over the years.
Isn't it amazing, Ira, how the similarities between, you look at a picture of the universe, you look at a picture of the World Wide Web and how it's all webbed together, and it's almost like they take these things from the mind and they turn them into a technology. I mean, what you just said about the internet, able to go and look up anything you want, about pretty much anything. You are almost able to get any information you want. And if you really know your stuff, you can get any other information you want. So it is similar. I mean, it's almost identical.
It's very much along the exact same lines. You're right, exactly, like a big internet. And if you look actually at the way that they have posited how the universe works and how it looks, they've actually been able to see that the universe itself looks exactly like the human brain does, that everything is connected together, synapse to synapse. The galaxies are all connected together through this vast network, and it looks exactly like the human brain. It's really odd, but it is the truth.
Yeah, it is, and I just wonder if, as we continue to make these artificial, these artificial universes, if you will, because I kind of look at the internet as its own universe. I mean, it is until something shuts it down, right? It's just like us, everything keeps flowing here until, I don't know, something blasts it away. So I just wonder if these technologies and these new spaces that we create, if they do, I don't know, create their own entity.
I think that they do. I do look at the internet itself, for example, as being an entity, a living, breathing entity. If you look at the way that it works, if you look at the way that it's set up, it really is set up just like its own consciousness. And I think that the bigger that it has gotten over the years, the more potent this consciousness has become, until now it is literally, kind of in control of the world, I guess you could say, for better or worse. But that is really how I look at things. And I think that our planet here, for example, our little individual planet, I think that what we're doing here, for example, with creating the internet, is just an extension of that idea of as above, so below. We see the universe. Now we see it has taken on the form of a brain, basically, with all the synapses, all the memories and everything that's installed within it. And then you bring that down onto a smaller scale and you see us human beings with our brain and how it's connected together and how all of the different divisions within it work. And then you go a little bit lower and you see how the internet works, and it is set up in the exact same way with the different synapses and nodes and all the different things that are interconnected together. And it really is just an as above, so below kind of a situation. How much further up is there and how much lower down is there,
Well, yeah, and that could be a matter of perception, too. We have a call, Ira. We've got David. David, welcome aboard.
How's it going, Michael? Hey, Ira.
Hello, David.
Called in just since the guest wasn't on, and let you know that it's clear as a bell out here in Los Angeles. I can get every word that's coming over your program just perfectly tonight. And I'm just so curious as to why it would be messed up back there.
I have no idea. All I know is I'm connected to the main source here, and it goes right through my headphones. And if I can't hear it well, then I'm assuming that everybody else isn't hearing it as well either, but they just don't care.
Right. Yeah. Well, I was just curious myself as to what could be the problem, but on these Akashic records, Ira, I was having a few questions as I was listening to her dissertation on them about. Ira, do you think the Archon demons they have a Akashic record on themselves?
Oh, absolutely. I think that every entity that exists within the universe, or even all of the universes together, they all have an entry in these records in one way or another. Whatever those records contain, everything that happens in the entirety of the history of the universe is contained within them.
Then here's something then. Why can't we get into these records and everybody learn the truth once and for all? Why?
There's no reason not to.
Well, right. But then it leads me to wonder, what are they for in the first place? Why does anybody have a record of what someone else has been doing in either one or many incarnations? What are they going to be used for?
Well, I look at it as the idea behind like what happens in system logs. So, for example, in a computer system, when you do anything on it, if you are the user of the computer, you will create a record of whatever it is that you did during the time period that you were on that computer system. Mm-hmm. And if you know how to look in the records, you can get in there and see exactly what changes were done, what activity was going on, what websites were browsed. All of that different kind of information is stored within those user records. For those who are able or have the knowledge enough to be able to get access to those logs. So it's not something that is like used on the surface of things. It's more as a way to, do maintenance, so that if you see errors occurring or anything like that, you can get down into the log and you can see, okay, this person was on at this time, this error occurred. What did they do in the system that caused this bug to happen, basically?
Well, like Hillary Clinton's Benghazi tapes or whatever, what I've read is she destroyed her server. Now, is that possible?
Yeah. If the server has not been connected to any other internet capable source, so in other words, if she didn't have any kind of Wi-Fi connection on it or any kind of LAN connection to another computer system, and she destroyed the computer, then it would erase the records. However, knowing that it was an email server, we can posit that it was in some way connected up to the internet, which means that the information that was contained within it is stored somewhere. It's stored somewhere. Where that might be, that's the bigger question. We'd have to trace down a lot to get that kind of information out, but that it is somewhere out there.
Right. That's what I thought when I first started to read about it. I thought, well, they got to have it somewhere. Somebody's got to have a record of it. But now to get back to the subject we were talking about, what I was told as a younger person was these Akashic records are in place, or they're going to be used later on for our quote unquote judgment day to see whether we've got a longer black line or a longer white line. And as far as that's why they said you judge yourself by your own action. You're not compared to anybody else on the judgment day. You got your own set of do's and don'ts, and we'll see how everybody does on their own.
Now, here's the problem I have, David. You bring up a good point, too, but my whole problem with this whole thing is if we're going to be judged by all these different lifetimes, how can I learn a lesson from my last one if I don't remember it this time? So,
boy, that's a good one, Mike. That's a good one. I know I've got a lot of questions about Akashic Records myself because I feel as though for anybody who's of a intelligence level where they're starting to look within themselves and judge themselves for their own deficiencies or inefficiencies, you really wonder, how do you know this? How do you figure this out? And it kind of goes back to the Indian philosophy from India, where they believe we come around several thousands of times,
right, with karma,
reincarnated. But how do we know? How do we know from the last time that we're not supposed to hurt somebody, without good cause, and or then they believe, you come back the next time and you have this done to you. Like people are born with one eye or one arm or one leg or whatever. That's because they did this to somebody else in a previous incarnation.
Right, and so they were being punished for it. Right. The Hindu way of looking at things is, I think, yes, they have the right idea when it comes to how karma works and that sort of thing, but they've taken it into a direction that it didn't need to go. They put humanness onto it, I think. What we see as a problem with the Hindu religion, for instance, is that when they look at a person and they're born into a certain state, so in other words, let's say somebody who is born very poor, the caste system was formed in India as a way to prove or to filter, I guess, the people who were born into that poor life. If you're born poor, there is nothing that you can do to ever elevate yourself up away from being poor, because you are being punished for what you did in a previous life. This is your punishment. So take whatever it is that you get. Now, the reason why I say that they put some human spin on that is because I don't think that is how it works. I think that karma is paid upon death, and I can explain why that is. But it's a great way for those who put this kind of system into place to be able to keep slaves.
Right, to
if you're born into poor, right? If you're born into the poor, then you're taught from the day that you're born, basically, that you're here because you did something in a previous life that was wrong, and this is your punishment. So take whatever you get. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but here in the United States, you can marry up in status, or down in status, and in India, is that true too? Can you come from a lower caste system?
No, once you are poor, you are poor. Like, for instance, in the caste system, they have what's called the unclean or the pariah. Right. If you are born into the unclean, you literally are the untouchables. You cannot be touched by anybody else. If somebody even touches you, then that person is now considered to be unclean. So they are avoided at all costs. It's a very, very strict system. The caste system there is extremely strict. And it's strict for a reason, because they have this idea that this is how things are supposed to be.
Right.
Now, for me, what I've seen, and this might go into your idea as far as Judgment Day is concerned, what I've seen happen upon death is that when people pass on to the other side, they live the hurts that they did to other people. And this is where I think the concept of hell actually came from, because this would be hell. If you, let's for example say, if you did a harm to somebody, in your lifetime, you will live that harm as if you were that person. Now, you're not living their life, but you will understand it from their perspective. So if, for example, you are a father who abused your child, and that child then was hurt from that, and they lived a lifetime of hurt because of what you did, you're going to actually understand that whole lifetime that your child went through based upon the hurts that you caused, and any hurts that they do in result of that hurt that you did to them, you're also going to live. So if they hurt somebody else because you hurt them, then that chain reaction basically continues to happen, and you will understand fully at that point in time the consequences of all of the different actions that you've taken through your life.
What's funny, Ira, is in my lifetime, my wife divorced me at age 30. I had 2 children, 3.5, and one was just born. And I had to leave the state of Minnesota because the judge in the divorce court either said, pay the child support or I'm going to throw you in jail. Well, I got laid off from Sperry Rand, which is a real good paying job, and I didn't have the money to pay my child support, so I had to leave the state and came out here to California. This was 30 years ago. In the meantime, my wife never let my children speak to me or know me or anything, and my mother reinforced this decision of hers. So I never got to see my children. I never got to talk to them or anything, and they just recently, last couple of years, they individually stopped out here to my place and spent about 5 minutes with me, looking at me, then walked out the door and left. I know exactly what you mean when you just went through that explanation with me, because I really feel bad about the situation that I'm shackled with, but there was nothing that I could do about it to change the situation. So it's a psychological type of chains that are put upon you, and you'd be lucky if you can get out of them in your lifetime, because you constantly feel bad that you missed your children's years, and they feel bad about it too, but there's nothing that they can do about it either. So they almost want to do it to their children, or something similar nature. Just like it's a continuing thing. And
in some cases, David, the children are taught to use hate as the emotion to cover up the hurt.
Yes.
Right, exactly, Michael. I've been trying to communicate with my son through Facebook, and he's just angry all the time. But you know what he did? Michael, he married a girl from Serbia, and she bore him a son, and then her parents came over here and convinced her to come back home with them, so she took his son and just left for Serbia, and now he's without a wife and a child. So he's really, really angry. He's 30 years old, and he's really angry, and he doesn't know what to do about it. So it's like history repeats itself, just magically, or for whatever reason, and he's faced with the same situation I got.
Well, the system is
that's
designed.
Exactly how things work, I think.
It's designed to keep the father out of the home.
Yeah, and there's nothing that the father can do.
And we have another call too, David. You can stay on if you like. We've got a Donna. Donna, welcome aboard.
Well, thank you very much, Michael, and all the rest of you.
Well, thank
I
you.
just wanted to mention, Ira was speaking about the caste system in India, which I'm somewhat familiar with. We decided back a number of years ago to sponsor a boy so that he could get an education. And at the time that we sponsored him, he was 11 years old. And we sponsored him until he graduated from high school. And he stayed right at a live-in type situation. And it was connected with the Catholic Church. And not that really makes any difference, but the whole system was through the Catholic Church. And that meant that he got an education, he was clothed, he had medical care, and other things that were available to him because he was there. His parents at the time, and I'm sure they still do, they lived in another town in a one-room mud hut with a thatched roof. They did have one light bulb. They had to go outside to get water. They had no toilet facilities. His brother, older brother, had also been educated and had some type of job, don't know what. His sister also had been educated and became a nurse. Now, meantime, the parents, they had no education at all, and they worked on a daily basis wherever they could, doing whatever they could. So hopefully, Robbie, who we sponsored, we found out after he graduated that he became a taxi driver. And usually these children end up helping their parents pay for things. Now, I know from the information that we got to begin with, the family had one outfit to their name, and that's what they wore on their back. There was nothing else that they owned. And hopefully, with the 3 children being educated, it can help the parents. I know it won't make them step up in their life status, but at least have food to eat and maybe another outfit to wear. Excuse me.
I see.
But we did sponsor him for all those years, and every 4 months, I would get a letter from him, and he wrote it in his language, and then somebody there would, rewrite it and kind of stumble through and put it into English, and then I would write to him, and somebody would translate it for him. And we would send him a gift at Christmas and one on his birthday. And we were very limited in what we could send them because jealousy of the other children. So he had to keep it down to something minimal, like a hat or, something simple. And also the size of the package, because if it's much more than that, the postal service there, they would open those packages and take whatever was in it.
Oh, they still do that today.
So we have to be very careful.
Yeah, they still do that today. Ira, we know. I had a computer come here. The box was open. The computer was in pieces. Huh.
I saw that box when we came down.
Yeah.
But I'm just hoping that this young man, Robbie, who's probably, mid-20s now, I hope that we helped him get one step ahead in life than what his parents had been.
Well, I think that anytime you're helping a child in any way, you're doing good. So.
Absolutely. Agree completely. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if it's more than they were getting otherwise. So, yeah, listen, if I was a millionaire, if I was rich, my God, I'd be helping kids all over the world, and and that's what I would do. I would have acres and acres and acres, and for these so-called troubled youth, there'd be a place for them, and I'd straighten them out.
The thing that makes me so angry when I hear about different poverty situations that are around the world is the fact that they've been able to figure that if they took 10% of the amount of money that was spent in a year's worth of time on defense alone by the different countries, in fact, just even by the United States alone, poverty would be solved within a year. But we can't do that because we have to have all of this money sent to defense. It's sick.
Ira, that this defense spending is merely putting up fences between the different countries so they can't communicate, so they can't share, so they can't get ahead. That's what the whole defense spending is. It's not to protect anybody from anything, but it's to keep them all corralled. It's the same type of thinking that they have in a big office building, right, where none of the departments do what the other departments are doing. Yes. It's the same type of thinking, and I don't know when it came about, maybe World War I or whenever, but it's a type of consideration they have all over the world now, and it's like that's defense. That's not defense at all. That's what we're spending billions and trillions and skillions on. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
David, I think that's been going on for a long time, not just recently. I think it's been going on since way back in the biblical times. Don't tell the other guy what you're doing because he'll take your place.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, gentlemen, I thank you very much, and I'm going to hang up and listen to the program.
All right, Adana, thank you so much for your call, and we'll be seeing you next week when I am in your neck of the woods. Looking forward to seeing the lake again.
Oh, good. Thank you.
All right, have a good one. All right, so interesting story there from Madonna, and we, and anyone else wants to call in, fine. I didn't want to overload our board here, so I wanted to wait until at least one of our callers was gone. So we're open if you want to call back in. Ira, we've actually had a lot of calls coming through tonight. It's just I've not been able to take them all. It's
pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's all right. It works for me. But yeah, as we were talking about, the whole system, David, it's designed to take the father out of the home. It's the master plan. Break up the family, break up the home. Cause now look, remember, they started getting the women to say, I don't need no man. I don't need no man. Well, that's where it all started. They didn't need no man because they were told to say they didn't need a man. And maybe some women, look, you don't have to prove you don't need a man. You may not need the man, but that child does.
Well, what happened to me was I moved out here to California, to Los Angeles, and I was celibate for about 15 years out here. I made lots of friends living on Venice Beach and whatnot, but I just figured I don't need any more of this treatment. And finally, I met a girl, and we started going out, and we never got married, but she bore me a son. This is 11 years ago. And then I got her a car, I got her a television set, a computer, everything else. And then she took my boy and moved up to Twin Falls, Idaho. And I said, what are you doing this for? She goes, well, my sister-in-law's got a house she's going to get for me. And I said, well, what about me? What about me? She just said, well, hey, you can move up there if you want. And it's like, I have to ask myself, what is going on nowadays? What drives a woman to think that they don't need a man for any good reason around? I was continuously sending up money and whatnot. Oh, and Ira, by the way, I would send up money to her inside of a stuffed animal, send it FedEx, and once the FedEx, they opened the packages and they found the money and they took it. FedEx took the money out of the stuffed animal. I couldn't believe that, and I thought, "Oh, you dirty rats! You can't even trust FedEx anymore."
And I'll tell you how it's gotten like this is because they've used Hollywood, they've used these daytime shows, Maury and all that. 99% you are the father. They want that drama. Yeah. That's what it's all about.
Well, eventually she moved back down here, and they're both with me now. But she doesn't want to get married, so I said, okay, I'm almost 60. I don't care if you get married or not.
Well, people are going to hate me for this, but I always said a marriage certificate. It's a piece of paper.
Absolutely.
It's your heart what matters. I mean, all that. The only reason there's that piece of paper, that marriage certificate, is so the government can get involved in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. It's just their way of making money.
Yeah, we're going to break up the home, and we're going to keep our lawyers rich. And
Well, that's what I told her. I said, we're common law married now, but we're going to be moving to Minnesota here shortly, and I told her, I said, this next house that I'm going to get, I said, I'm going to put it in my name and not yours because I don't want you to take half of it when you move out on me. And she goes, well, I may be able to anyway. I said, I don't know. Probably will, who knows. But it's just, let's face it, guys, for all time, the men had the upper hand and they abused it to whatever degree, and now it's almost karmic that the men have to put the shoe on the other foot and kick themselves in the butt with it because it's like nowadays the women have the advantage, both legally and systematically and in every way, shape, and form.
We've had this patriarchal society now for about 4,000 or so years, and probably a little bit longer, maybe up into maybe 5 or so thousand. What we've got actually is this weird situation where the pendulum has swung from the one direction into the other. It's now getting to the point that it's going to be more of a matriarchal type of a situation. Right. Here's the problem that I have with both of those sides. On the patriarchal side, you have all of the problems that we've seen over the past few thousand years, with wars and all of that kind of stuff, okay? However, people think that the matriarchal society would be better. In matriarchal societies, it's actually worse. There are actually more wars, more aggressions that go on and so forth. So it's a really weird situation. But what we need is actually something along the lines of, let's say, what the Native Americans used to do. In a lot of tribes here for Native Americans, what would happen is the chief would be the one that ran the tribe, did the day-to-day decisions on what happens with the tribe. But the chief is put into place by a council of elder women. And if he did something wrong, that council of elder women could kick him out and put a new one into place.
Well, Ira, that was just like in my house growing up. My parents were married 48 years before my mother passed away. They dated for probably another decade before that. But anyways, they were together for a long time, and my dad made the main decisions in the house, but when Mom got pissed, Dad knew his place.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and it worked for 48 years. There's no problem.
My mom and dad always said that he wore the pants, but she hemmed them. So,
well, yeah, exactly. They worked together. They were a team. That's the way it should be. And even if you don't get along, for say you guys got to split up for whatever reason, then split up. But you're not hurting the man when you are, but you're not hurting the man the most when you keep the kids from him because you're going to show him that you're the boss. Or vice versa. There's guys. I'm not taking sides here. It happens on both ends now.
Right.
But you're hurting that child. The child they want mom and dad to get along. They don't want you fighting. You're destroying their lives when you do this. And I've lived it.
The most annoying thing to me, my biggest pet peeve, is when I see one parent bashing the other parent in front of the child. Never do that. Never do that.
What I've heard is that the boy needs his father's approval, and the daughter needs her father's approval as far as, her continued relationship with a man of her choice later on, you know. And
well, the daughter...
if she doesn't have that, then she misses part of that sense of security in life.
Psychologically, I mean, it's been proven over and over again that a girl is going to marry the person who reminds her of her father the most.
They hate to hear that,
that's
but
what it comes
true.
down to.
Yeah, that's true.
People hate to hear that, but it is the truth. And something else that people hate to hear, and I'm going to be politically incorrect here, but so what? You know me, I have no qualms about being politically incorrect. I am fully of the belief that yes, men and women are completely equal, 100% equal, but we're equal in different ways. Women are better at things than men are, and men are better than women at things than they are. It's just the way that it is. Look, I mean, we've come to this point in this life that we're living, having evolved to this point, however you want to look at that happening, right? But there are differences between the females and the males of the species, of the human beings, just like every other species out there. Okay, we're no different than that.
Thank God there's differences.
Yeah, exactly. It adds the spice. That's where the spice of life comes from. But they're better at things, we're better at things, but overall, everything is 100% equal. You don't walk in front of the woman, you walk beside the woman.
I've always thought that women were much, much better at multitasking because the males, I know my own experience, I'm real good at doing one thing at a time and doing it all the way. But it kind of messes me up if I'm trying to, handle, 4, 5, 6 or more different tasks all simultaneously, where women seem to gravitate towards that. They seem to enjoy, doing the dishes, cooking the lunch, doing the laundry, talking on the telephone.
Well, I don't know if they enjoy that now. I don't know if I'd go that far and say they enjoy it. I know.
My wife is one that does. She actually
but they do.
She volunteers to do it. She loves to do it. She gets the biggest kick out of doing it. And I'm like, you're crazy.
But you're right.
Did. Women tend to be a lot more logical than men, and that is why we get into so much trouble, because they get so much of a memory going on. They'll bring up an argument, something that you said in an argument 40 years ago. They'll toss it up into your face and be like, "You remember 40 years ago when you said this? You ruined my life," and blah blah. And it's like, what the hell? I don't even remember breakfast.
Oh God, I've got callers who do that.
We're kind of simplistic in a sense in our thinking and in our action. And I have to say, as a male creature, because we're real systematic, but just give us what we got to do today, and that's fine. I don't want to worry about it till tomorrow if I don't have to do it till tomorrow. But women are always thinking about what's on the tray for the whole year today. But
well, I say, men have been ruling the world for a long time, and it's been nothing but hell here. So I say, why not let women rule? Not Hillary Clinton. She don't count. That's a man. That's like a Japanese experiment.
And not Caitlyn Jenner either.
Yeah. But, how about the women take control, and let's see how, I don't know, maybe we'll have more rainbows.
Well, what it comes down to is a weird situation with me, Michael and Ira. As you know, that I've predicted the moon's implosion on September 28th, and the information that I got concerning that was that everything is going to change between males and females after that implosion happens, because that is the key objective right there that causes the differential between the males and females on the planet, and all the arguing and all the breakups and all the discontent is that moon above us, and without that moon, things will start to work like they used to a long, long time ago, even in the days of the Sumerians, when the females actually worked harmoniously with the men, and the men worked harmoniously with the women, and everybody got along.
Well, I think the women actually worked harmoniously with the men until they got sick and tired of the men, abusing them and treating them horrible and treating them like second class. Because look, you look at all the major stories, how much is in there about women? And when it is, I mean, look, you look at the Middle East, they think it's okay to smack a woman around and stone her to death.
I know. And where would the Middle East be without women? They wouldn't even be in existence. So that's what I don't understand about Sharia law. In fact, Sharia law really makes the men look stupid and ignorant, if they think they can do this to the female element, cut their noses off.
It shows how weak they are, to be honest with
totally.
You. It shows how weak the men are, because if you have to put your women in these clothes that completely cover them up except for their eyes.
Well, you know why?
Then that shows how weak you are, that you can't even look at the woman and not be able to control yourself.
Well, you know why they do that? They do that because they secretly have a craving for another man or something.
Yes.
And they just don't want to see beauty, I guess. I don't know what else it would be. And then they treat women horrible, and they think they're going to get 71 of them or something.
Yeah. And they don't allow them to wear makeup or even any clothes that are complementary to their physical form or anything. I can't believe that. And they want to come over here, and then Barack Obama saying how this is a Muslim country now, and we have to welcome them in.
I wish they'd dress Michelle up in some of that clothing.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. I mean, what's Caitlyn gonna say about that? And when she, or even Michelle Obama, what's she gonna say about this when she is confronted with these questions of decency and moral integrity? It's like, come on, guys, what we got to do. I think you guys probably are in agreement with it. We got to all sit down and work it out. Everybody's got to work out with not so much what they want, but we just got to quit doing to each other what we don't like to see done to someone else.
Well, yeah. That my biggest problem is that I just hate when people try to get involved in anybody else's business, and that's what it comes down to.
I was just going to say the number one key is how about everyone just mind their own damn business?
Exactly. You have to. I mean, that's the first step with it. Don't worry about what somebody else is doing. Worry about what yourself is doing.
Right.
I've said this when it comes to, the people that are complaining about the police departments and so on and so forth. A lot of the complaints that are going on about the police departments, a lot of them come from, these really horrific, horrible neighborhoods. Clean up your own damn neighborhood, and then maybe the cops will leave you alone. Start with your own house first before you start bitching about somebody else's going on.
Right, but then we have the problem with the federal government.
That is a problem.
Out of D.C.
Yes, I'm not disregarding it.
Biggest problem of all, when they're confiscating the main waterways, coming in with this jade helms into states like Texas, and shooting up those bikers that are trying to have a peaceful breakfast together for the first time in a year, and trying to stir up trouble, and the HARP system causing the storms down there and whatnot. I mean, there's big elements that are really problems that are being done to us.
Yeah. But do you not see that those things are actually being done as a way to put tinder onto a fire?
Sure.
That's exactly why it is. They're just doing it to exacerbate all of the situations that we're in. I'm not saying that they're not causing the problem, yes, but what I'm saying is that when it comes to us taking care of business, we really do need to start in our own homes first before we go anywhere else to worry, about anything else. That's where it really begins. If people get things under control in their own houses, in their own neighborhoods first, it spreads out from there. We don't have to worry about the rest of the crap because we have already taken care of the business on hand at the baseline of stuff, and they can't come in then and change things.
And I love people who are so angry that the men are abusing the women, say in a Middle Eastern country, but they're the same people who are quick want to make it a parking lot. Drop a bomb on them, get rid of them
yes.
all.
Exactly.
Yes, fighting violence with violence. Yes.
Well, they're over here on Facebook showing them cutting people's heads off every week. It's like even cutting children's heads off. I mean, what the heck is going on? All this murder is what it is.
These are brainwashed, mind-controlled zombies who they have no place in society, and people like that should just be wiped off the face of the earth. It's the bottom line. If you think it's okay to cut someone's head off, or for any reason, but for a religious reason, especially because you think your God's going to reward you, you've got mental damage, and you need to be dealt with.
Well, and this goes back kind of to the Akashic Records now. What do you think these individuals are getting on their Akashic Records for their next time around, or if they don't come back around, it's going to look really bad for them.
Well, yeah, now what I was saying earlier, remember bear in mind what I had to say earlier, that when we pass on, the first thing that ends up happening basically is that we live those hurts that we give. That's the karmic payment. Each lifetime that we live, it's not related to the past lives. That's one thing that I think a lot of people really have confused. Your life now has nothing to do with the past life that you lived, because everything that was done in that past life has been settled upon death. You've paid the price. You've taken the quote unquote punishment by living out these hurts. Each life that we live, we're expected to live this life in order to, progress ourselves further and further along. We don't have to remember what the past lives were, because none of them relate to the life that we're currently living.
But I think, though, that I think that when we go to the other side, we know everything.
Yes, absolutely.
But when we come back here, we don't. So I would say that whatever happened in my last life is definitely not for me to take as a lesson coming into this life, only for the other side. It must be for my spiritual growth.
Precisely.
It can't be for anything here because I don't remember it.
Precisely. What I see happening is that when we enter into this life, we have entered into it having chosen beforehand the things that we want to get out of this life, essentially. The life that we want to live. Sort of the overarching story. Maybe not necessarily the minutia of day-to-day activities, but the overarching storyline that our life wants to, lead us through from point A to point Z. And that life basically is designed, I think, to come up with, or to learn a lesson that we haven't learned in our previous adventures in life.
Use new techniques.
Use what? I'm sorry.
Use new techniques.
Right.
To accomplish it.
Yeah, maybe along those lines. I mean, it's like, let's say, for example, in one lifetime, I've learned the lesson that I don't have to be under the subjection of another person, that I could be under my own control of myself, for instance.
Right.
The next lifetime, I don't have to learn that lesson over again because I've already learned that one. So the next one, I could learn how to treat the poor better, for instance. And maybe in that lifetime, how I'm going to learn how to treat the poor better is by living as a poor person.
And where I think our last lives could be stored, these past lives, I think it could be stored in our subconscious. That's why we can only access it when we're dreaming. And that's why sometimes I think we're like, what the hell was that dream about? Well, you'd know if you remembered your last life. And I think that's where it is. I think our DNA is probably where it's all, where it all is.
Well, I look at the DNA as being the antenna that actually gets the signals from the universal consciousness.
That's why they call it junk. They don't want us to know.
And that when it comes to like what you were just saying there, our dreams, I think we are connecting up to that Akashic Records, and that we are pulling information out. I mean, for instance, when I dream, just as an example, when I dream, as I explained before, I'm one that has been able to access the records. When I dream, almost every one of my dreams, I am actually, there's the sensation that information is being downloaded into me. Like literally I am connected up to something, and it is downloading information into me, and I can actually see the entity that is doing it. It's a really weird situation, but I think that for someone like me who's able to access those kind of records, that may be how our dream interaction is. For other people, they may not have that dramatic or that depth of downloading going on. So it's more of a subconscious dream action that ends up occurring. But either way, I do think that it's along those lines. Yeah.
Well, I agree with you, but I don't look at it that way because that's not my experience. But I always look at it like I always figure maybe my guardian angel's trying to input data into my head, so I'll consider doing it a different way.
Yeah.
Like in my situation, I realized that if I was a crazy person or mad about what's happened to me in the past, I could buy a gun out here and get on a Greyhound bus and go and take revenge in Minnesota. But I'm not going to do that because I'm too smart for that, and it seems to me a dumb idea. So I'm not going to do that this time. Instead, I hooked up with a new girl, and we're living a much better, happier life together now. But I still think that the key to physical existence is to allow things to happen just the way they're happening. That is to realize that every one of us on this planet or wherever we're at, whatever town or city we're in, is going through the same type of conscious realization depending on what age they're at. And so the trick to getting along or making it work is to just be a kind and considerate individual rather than an angry, pissed off, vengeful person about what's happened to me since I was born here. Right. And what I feel like somebody owes me or life owes me, and get over that whole type of thinking, because you never know, you might be off the planet tonight or tomorrow, so and with that consideration, you gotta be, like I say, much more considerate about where you're at and what you're doing.
Well, what you were saying there at the beginning, you're basically looking at it in exactly the same way I am. We're just coming at it from different perspectives. So we're both coming to the same conclusions, just from different directions, basically, which is good. I think that is the best way to do things. When you are trying to figure things out. We don't know everything. No way do we do. None of us do. So the best way to come at an understanding of how the universe works or how any of this stuff goes is by looking at things from different perspectives.
Well, yeah, and you're not allowed to know everything. I mean, it's obvious. Right. If we were, then somebody would know everything, and they'd be proving it to us right now. So.
Yeah, well, we'd have a mental overload, Michael. I think if we got all that information at once.
Yeah, it'd blow our circuits, basically.
Yeah, it would. It would just blow us away. But what I've always wondered ever since I've been a little kid was where I came from, just generally, what I was doing here, and what it was all for in the end when I get off the planet and die. What is this all supposed to be for? And those were the three questions I asked all the priests as I grew up in the Catholic Church, and my parents, and anyone I happened to meet that I considered intelligent or reflective. I always asked them what could be the answers to them.
And what did the priest say? Come sit on my lap.
Well, he said you're going to get into heaven. And I said, well, what do you get in heaven? And he said, well, we don't know. My mom told me you get a bottomless glass of lemonade and you get to sit on a cloud forever and ever. And, people just don't know even what they're going to get if they get into the heaven or for the forever and ever. They don't even know what that is going to constitute, so to speak. So I've always had those questions in my mind, and that's always perplexed me every night when I go to sleep. When I say my prayers, I always say, could you show me some kind of an answer somewhere before I die?
Well, one thing that's interesting is actually on my show on Monday on Open Eyes, I was discussing the subject of prayer and how prayer and intentions and meditation, they're all one and the same. And one of the things that I put forward as how people are praying incorrectly, I guess you could say, is that when people pray, they ask for things. That's not the correct way to do. That's not what you should do in prayer. What you should do in prayer is you conform yourself and you act as if it has already occurred. So you go from a state of saying, please let this happen, to thank you for letting this happen.
Right. Yeah.
And your whole universe then conforms itself into becoming exactly what you have prayed upon.
Yeah, I was always taught to thank God for everything you got, and then maybe he'll bring you a little bit more tomorrow rather than ask for anything, because, you know,
see, and
I was taught that I'm too stupid to know what I want.
And I've done both. I thank him for what I have, and I also yell at him when things don't go right. So, you know, hey, we're going to be buddies. Let's be buddies. You know, why?
Yeah.
When we be
Yeah,
me.
exactly. Well, I mean, I look at God, you know, the creator, the source, whatever you want to call it. It's all one and the same. I look at it as being me, because I'm a part of it. It's a part of me. I'm here. Right? So I'm a part of creation. That means that I'm a part of him. So I'm going to treat him the same way that I treat myself, you know?
Right. And, you know, apparently I've told over and over again that we agreed to be here. And, well, that's all well and good. But I think some of us who, you know, I don't know. Wouldn't you just like to know? I like David's question. I mean, isn't that the golden question? Why? Why the hell are we here? What is it all about? We could speculate and all those, and I'm sure there's some purpose, and not because I feel like we have to have a purpose, just because I think there is. But I don't know.
But what about the murderers and the rapists and the child molesters and the individuals who are evil, even women who are evil and controlling and despicable? I don't know how the heck they got here, and if they did get here by their own choice or their own volition, I don't understand why the heck any creator would allow them to be with all these people that are working their way up, trying to be good every day.
I think it's like everything else. I think there's defects, and, you know, everybody considers God to be all perfect. Well, if he created us, well, we got to either agree on a couple things. Either God's not perfect, because the creation certainly isn't, or there's somebody interfering somewhere. So it's one or the other.
Yeah, well, I'll give you my take. I actually have a twofold take on exactly this, if you guys don't mind. In string theory, which is one of the methodologies of trying to explain the universe, what they've found is that there is actually a mathematical formula that is a part of the universal construct that is exactly the same as the error correction code, the IPv6 error correction code that is used on the internet. It is a duplicate of it. So there's this error code, this error correcting code that is built within the structure of the universe. That means there are errors that are going on. You know, if you want to break it all down into that, that means that there are some kind of errors that have occurred within the universe, and this error correction code is there to reorient things and to reprogram the code back into the proper format. So maybe, as an example of taking what you guys are saying, maybe these kind of events and people are the errors that are occurring that need to be corrected.
We're sorry, your universe has been destroyed. Please try your life again later.
well, the reason that this thought came to my mind was I had a really good friend of mine that I've known for 20 years. He moved out east to South Carolina, matter of fact, married a gal, and she was 6 months pregnant with a baby, and he had befriended a homeless guy a year earlier, and this guy was angry all the time. Well, the guy broke into his house and was going to steal his laptop and found a revolver in his bedroom dresser and stole it. But then when he came home with his pregnant wife, he shot them both in the back of the head and killed them both. And this was just like a month ago or so. And I just think, oh my God, how could this happen? This guy was one of the nicest guys I'd ever met in my life. He would harm no one. He helped everyone. And I just think, why does this gotta happen?
Well, listen, David. I had a guest on who actually made the best sense out of that I have heard so far, and that is that we all have exit points where we want to get out, where we're to get out, and in those exit points, sometimes it's a lesson for someone else. Like,
yes.
say, okay, I killed somebody's kid in this lifetime, meaninglessly, just thought it was great, right? Well, next lifetime. it might be my kid, or, and it's like we all volunteer for these lessons, these soul lessons. And I thought that was a good explanation as to why these things happen, but also that we have exit points. Like, if they didn't want to go, that shooting wouldn't have took them out. They would have stuck around for the next exit. But I don't know if that's true, but, it makes sense because I had a heart attack and, I could have died, but I didn't. So why?
Yeah. Why did you have a heart attack?
Yeah. I see that actually, and I do have to agree with it, at least in part. One of the other things that was the twofold section of that thing that I was speaking there earlier, I do think that we are here to learn lessons, as I was saying alluding to earlier. In those lessons, there has to be bad things that occur.
But they're spiritual lessons, not
they
physical.
are, yes. But every spiritual lesson, everything physical is spiritual. I mean, there really is nothing physical. It's all spiritual when it all comes down to it. Okay, let me put this as an example, just because it's a great one that I try to give out. Okay,
all right.
Let's take Hitler for example, one of the worst human beings on the face of the planet. Okay, everybody can point to him and say this was an evil guy. Okay,
so it's said, yes.
Yeah, so we've been told. Here's the thing. He taught humanity a lesson that we can never allow somebody to come into power like that again. Now, whether or not we learn that lesson or not is up to us as a human species. But that was still the purpose, or at least one of the purposes of him doing what he did.
Let me be like a fortune cookie here and say that a lesson not learned is a lesson not taught at all.
True.
Or a lesson to be repeated.
Yes.
Because Adolf, I like to call him Adolf, I compare him to like Caesar or to Genghis Khan or to any of the great noted tyrants of their time. Adolf was just a failed college student that was from Austria. But, he was at the right time in the right place, and he got the backing from the Rothschild money printers and a few individuals over here in this country to rise up in this Nazi political party and take the reins for the country and to oust the Jewish clan and took control. But I don't know as to whether it was all Adolf's doing. I think to myself there was perhaps some other players in the game that we don't even know about.
Well, and I'll tell you something else too. From what I've done some digging in this, and I've seen some things, and from what I've seen, Hitler was trying to get rid of the bankers, and they just so happened to be Jewish, and he tried to get rid of them, and he actually gave them a chance to get out of the country, and they didn't go. So, and I'm not going to sit here and chant who's right and wrong. All murder of anybody is wrong, but. That being said, people talk about Holocaust. There's been many Holocausts. Look at the United States and Russia, what they did to the German soldiers in Russia. I mean, there was how many of them?
Oh, yeah. Well, just the abortions in this country alone in the last 30 years are a Holocaust against humanity, Yeah. It's unbelievable. Yep. And it's still going on to this day. So, people don't look at these little or huge things. They cover them up and they point fingers at something else that historically happened, instead.
Yeah, right, exactly. And like I said, I mean, look, when it comes down to this idea of lessons too, bear in mind that the universe is very fractal. In every event or everything that occurs, there are multiple things that can be learned out of it. It's not just one thing that comes out of it, and it's never just one thing that's a factor into the cause of it happening. But, the thing that I've taken it as an example again, and this is a sad one, but this is one that a lot of people have to deal with. I deal with it on a personal basis myself. My son is severely autistic, Okay. Now, I never would have wished for this to have happened to him, but I look at things as being a lesson of a type, because since he's been in my life, I have learned how to be more patient, more calm, and so on and so forth.
Oh, so then it's
because
him
of having
I have
to deal with that.
It's him I have to thank for your
Exactly.
patience.
Exactly.
Well, then this could be considered karma.
It is of a type. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Well, I believe karma, either positive or negative, is directly tied to our Akashic record.
It is.
From our past incarnations, whatever we still need in this lifetime that we're living, it's either going to be good or bad, but it's designed to improve our spiritual composition within our character if we will accept it and deal with it in an appropriate fashion. If not, then it's going to be up to us to come back and do it again the right way and experience it again in order to get through it, so to speak.
See, if I was God,
when it comes to lessons, the way that I look at things is that let's take the example of just kind of your average father. Okay. If you, as a father, you tell your kid not to do something, you tell your kid not to do something, and the kid says, no, I'm going to still do this anyways. So you have to, no, you need to not do this. No, I'm not going to listen. You need to not do this. And every time that you try to get them, to listen, the harshness or the punishment has to get worse and worse. The lessons, the universe works in the exact same way. One thing that I give as an example as well is different relationships that we'll be in. We'll be in these different relationships where if you actually look at the overarching theme of the relationship, it is a duplicate of the past relationships that you've had. And you'll be in these same ones over and over and over again. And each time that you are in them, they get worse and worse and worse. And until eventually you come to the point where you have, quote unquote, learned the lesson that you don't need this type of person anymore, and you move on, you either decide I'm going to live my life alone or whatever the case may be. And then lo and behold, a year, 2 years, 3 years later, suddenly you meet somebody who's vastly different. You fall in love and everything's great. It's the way that it works,
Well, yeah, and guys, we got to take a break here, real here with Late Night in the Midlands, and there's some others out there who don't like it very much. They want stats. Prove it to me. Well, I would prove nothing to you. I have nothing to prove to anybody. We're here. That's all the proof you need. Ira and David, we are back, and the call-in number is 803-317-2264. If you so choose to call in. Guys, we've had a very interesting conversation here tonight. Very interesting.
Well,
I definitely enjoyed it.
What I wanted to say was tonight is the supposedly the strawberry full moon on the 2nd of this month, and we only have 8 more days before Mercury goes out of retrograde. But
thank God.
yes, indeed. I can't wait. But you know what, Michael, one thing I really enjoy about this show is the way you're always asking throughout the program for people to call in, and that's what prompted me to get on this program and to listen. And I'm always listening in if I'm not on the chat board, but I really do enjoy hearing the thoughts and the considerations of your listeners, like Adonna tonight. I communicate with her on Facebook regularly, but I've never heard her voice, and it was really a thrill for me just to hear her speaking this evening. But I wanted to thank you for the way you run your program and the way it comes off here. It's a very, very conducive to inviting new thoughts and considerations from the general public.
Well, I thank you, David. And that's what it's all about. That's why we like to open lines. I mean, if there's one thing even my enemies, people who can't stand me, credit me for, is that I always give people an opportunity to speak. I don't talk over them, and I don't go to breaks when they're saying something they shouldn't. An F-bomb's a different case, folks. Come on, we got kids and we've got elders who we respect who listen in, and that's why we keep the F-bombs off here. But I mean, other than that, I let people speak freely. I always have.
Yeah, well, I really enjoy listening to this program and participating in whenever I feel the calling from above to call in.
Well, even the people that I disagree with, I still learn from. Always.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the way it always is for me. I don't know how many other people out there are that way, but even if it's somebody that I disagree with, the way that I've always looked at things is that a true sign of intelligence is if you can look at every side of a certain topic and be able to actually argue every side of every topic without actually having a full belief in the topic. That way you have a deep understanding of every aspect of whatever is going on. So, for example, if somebody disagrees with me, I'll try to give them different perspectives on the way that I think of things and all of that kind of stuff. Or if I'm in disagreement with them, I'll try to look at it from their perspective, look at it from other directions as well, because there might be something else that I'll have a better understanding of or a better agreement on if I come at it from a different way, basically.
Right. Well, what kind of it irritates me in the end, but I have to say that some callers or some people that I've listened to, it seems to me they have an axe to grind. They're pissed off about something for years and years, and then they're trying to put forth a point, and they just refuse to look at it from a different perspective. Where I'm more open to new perspectives all the time. Trying to understand the situation, how it even developed to the point it is at the moment.
Yeah, that's the most important thing right there. I think you're touching right on something really important, is to understand the origins of things. I think that origins, if you are looking at any topic, whatever it may be, whether it's aliens and UFOs, whether it's the paranormal, whether it's religious issues or anything along those lines, which you could probably say that all three of those combine together. But anyways,
sure. Oh, well, yeah.
If you
even the
look
sex
into the
changes,
origins,
even the sex changing,
yeah,
I ask
exactly.
myself, why do people want to change their sex?
Yeah, exactly. Look into the origins of things and try to figure out why things actually got the beginning of things. Like for example, well, what you guys were asking earlier, why are we here? Well, you could go even further into the past than that, further back into the origins of that question and ask, why did the universe even begin with, let alone why are we here? Why is the universe here? And that is where if you come at things from that baseline, the more of a base that you can get to a topic, the more you're going to have an understanding of all the other things that are derived from it. You have to get to the root of the tree before you can understand what the branches and the leaves are doing.
And there's one of two things happening here. We're either agreeing to come here, in which case this must be fantastic, and maybe some of us don't realize how great this is, or we're being forced to come here. So, which is
both?
Well, I think in some cases it is both, actually. Yes, I think that because let me put it to you this way: I've dealt with a lot of spirits over the years, a lot of them, and I always hear their stories. I always hear their stories of why they're there. What has brought them to the point where they're at, all of that kind of stuff.
You should have dealt
that kind of information is given to me.
You should have dealt with the two I'll be talking about in Rochester next week. They don't tell you anything. They try to start you on fire.
Well, see, even that can be an objective story as well. We just have to learn how to interpret their language,
Sure.
But when it comes down to it, though, what I've found is that there are those of us who choose to come here because we've chosen that, okay, let me put it to you this way. We get to the other side. We've gone through the perspective, that lessons perspective. So in other words, the quote unquote judgment that you talk about, David, where we have judged ourselves. We live our lives, we live from the perspective of the people that we've caused harm to. Once we've passed through that, which that does not last forever, once we've gone through that, we are then brought into a place where we are essentially one with everything, like the Dalai Lama ordering a hot dog, give me one with everything. Make me one with everything. Okay, so in that portion of things, we can choose to come back to go into the next lessons if we want to. We can choose to do a whole different world if we want to. We're not limited to just Earth. But sometimes...
Then why the hell do we keep coming back here?
Well, sometimes we get kicked out of there and into the next lesson. You know, like, okay, you've spent enough time in R&R. It's time to go back into the war, basically. You know.
Well, Ira, one of the things that I adopted kind of in my years of research was I view the populace of the planet as either a triangle going up, which would symbolize ascenders. Those are individuals that have lived and died and lived and died, and they're living again, working their way up towards the primordial force, God, so to speak. And then there's the other triangle, which is coming down, which represents the descenders, which would be like Michael and you and me and other people like Adana, who actually care more for humanity just as a whole, and we're here to help out, and we're here for the good of humanity rather than for the selfish, singular intentions that the ascenders may have. We are descenders, and I think to myself, I think maybe both scenarios are going on, but actually what's happening is these are spirits that are been reincarnated a number of times, and we're just on we're over the halfway point, and the other ones are still working their way up to the halfway point, and we're all working towards getting ourselves out of these bodies, but and into the next phase. But that could be what's going on.
Well, if you look into the symbology that you're using there, I think it's really interesting, because the triangle facing up is always considered to be the chalice, or the feminine version of things, and the triangle facing down is considered to be the sword, or the male phallic kind of thing. And so you're kind of touching on, I think, actually what the baseline of those symbols really are. That the ones who are the more feminine or are having a growth factor or a creationary kind of a factor are moving up through the chalice, up the pyramid, and those who are ready for a more physical version of life and so on and so forth, they're coming more into a male perspective of things, so they're descending down.
Yeah, maybe we got to go through these different, there's grades. I've said this before. There's, 12, maybe there's 12 dimensions we have to go through, or 12 of this, or some, who knows how many, but we go through them and we have to graduate. We have to keep moving up. And when we, if we screw up too bad, get off track, which isn't hard to do. In this lifetime.
Easy to do.
Real easy to do. But then I look back at everything that's happened, even some of the things that at the time I wish I never did, or I wish I never fell into, right? And I look back at it, and but if any of those things were changed, I don't think I'd be who I am and where I am right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about things in the way that Edison put things, and I don't necessarily always agree with Edison, but I really like this quote from him that when he was asked why he did not get the light bulb perfected for over 1,000 times, and he said, I didn't, I didn't have 1,000 failures. It just took me 1,000 times to get it right. They were not failures. He just got it right, but it just took him 1,000 times to get there. So, that I think is actually the better way to look at things with it. We don't actually fail the grade that we're in. We're always, learning something, even from when we quote unquote fail.
I'm sorry. I'm willing to bet that there's at least a handful, because I've ran into them. If you've ever been to a Walmart or any place like that, you've seen these people. I could guarantee you there's at least a handful of those people who, doesn't matter how many times they come back, there's got to be a program on the other side, no soul left behind, and they're just pushing them through.
Well, listen, that touches into something that I've thought over the years and what I've found over the years, and I don't know if other people out there who are empathic like me can attest to this or not, but it's kind of a question maybe that I'll put out there. I've encountered a lot of meat suits over the years, the bodies.
Yeah.
That I would say had no soul contained within. that they were just an empty meat suit walking around.
So battery.
There was nothing soul there. You know, it was a disconnected, nothing spiritual going on there in any way, shape, or form. It was just a body going through the motions of being alive.
Like Dick Cheney.
Exactly.
Ira, out here in Los Angeles, California, is the biggest city of those type of individuals. They're all beautiful looking, and they have nothing upstairs at all.
Yeah,
and
they
come from other parts of the country too. They even come from around the world to get into movie making and to television and to whatnot. But it's the saddest thing I've ever seen.
Well, David, have you ever seen your average zombie movie? That's exactly what happens with the bodies that have no soul left in it. They conglomerate together. They all gather together into one place and just start wandering around. So instead of them going, they're going, oh, aren't I pretty? Look at my hair. I just got my hair done yesterday. Isn't it awesome? Oh, look, I got my nails done too. Oh, what's the newest thing Kim Kardashian's doing?
What's so amazing is, though, they're in gorgeous physical forms, and they just look like beautiful people, and they're all sitting around doing absolutely nothing.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, my God, I can't believe it. When I got here in 1990, I thought, where am I at? This is incredible, because I come from the cornfields of Iowa, and we don't have really a lot of attractive people there, but they're all hardworking and industrious. But out here, it's just... everybody is. Everybody everywhere is.
But listen, David, you're on the right track with things right there. The people who are the most soulless are the ones who are the most beautiful, because they're the most physical. You see, that beauty is that lack of soul is actually reflected in the quote unquote physical beauty that they have. But I look at them and I see just nothing but this soulless person that's there.
I don't know about you,
is completely useless.
But when I look in the mirror, I see beauty. So
exactly, it's all exactly.
I always ask the mirror on the wall.
I don't ask the mirror nothing. I made sure I got one that was deaf and dumb.
Yeah, well, I've broken a few over the years myself, but when it comes down to it, though, the people who tend to have the most beautiful souls, they don't really always reflect that on the physical level. But okay, let me put it to you this way. I'll give you a great example of this. I saw a video not too long ago of a guy who did a social experiment. He went to different restaurants. And he saw people outdoor restaurants, basically. He saw people eating like pizza, and he'd go up to him and he was basically, dressed like he was homeless and that sort of thing. And he'd walk up to him, man, I'm really hungry. Can I get a slice of that pizza? Sitting there with the whole pizza in front of him. No, get your own, get a job, you loser, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
He bought a pizza then, and he gave it to a homeless guy. Okay. And this homeless guy, they had the video camera running. It was hidden, but, they were watching him. He was eating a couple of pieces, and he just kind of put the box in front of him. And then they had another guy that came up to him that, was part of this crew. And they said, hey, man, I'm really hungry. Can I grab a slice of that? And the homeless guy just opened the box up. Here you go. Take as much as you want. Now, see, this guy, he was homeless. He was dirty. He did not look the best, on and on and on. But this guy had the most beautiful of souls, because he was more than willing to give of himself to help somebody else out.
Those of us who have the least do the most. It's just a proven fact.
Yes, because we've been there. We know how that misery is.
I believe, I'm serious. I've talked to a lot of these beautiful people out here for 25 years, and I honestly got to tell you, Ira, I think their previous incarnations were in animal form, because Michael, I'll tell you the truth. That does happen. They live in complete slum conditions. They don't even take care of their apartments. They drive the dirtiest cars. They don't care about anything that a normal person should care about, but yet they look incredibly beautiful and whatnot.
Yeah, it's like what Lewis Black says sometimes. These people, they're 10 hairs away from being baboons.
Exactly. But like you said, Ira, the guy sitting there that's down, looks like he's down and out of luck. It may be just his opportunity in this lifetime to see what it's like to be in those conditions, even though spiritually he may be way ahead of his time.
And at the same time, David, it might also be killing two birds with one stone, and you may be being tested.
That's exactly right. And also a third one is that through his actions, he has taught people how they're supposed to be. So you see how the universe is fractal. It does these multiple things within even just one little event. There are hundreds of different things that come out of it.
You're rolling the karma dice. Now, if you kick that guy aside and say, I don't give a damn how hungry you are, get a job, bum. You know, now don't get me wrong. If someone comes out of the crack house and they still got the needle in their arm, I'm not giving them anything. But but there are people who are just down on their luck. And let's face it, the longer you go down on your luck, the harder it is to get back on your feet.
Yes, it is. I've been there.
Well, now there's also there's a third or another part of this equation that could be, and I've seen this happen myself, is I truly believe in guardian angels that can incarnate just for the moment and be there just to impress an idea upon people walking by, such as ourselves, as to the fundamental reality that may be different than what we think, you know. And
exactly. I mean, even the Bible speaks about that. The Bible speaks about that. You never know when you're entertaining angels, you know.
Well, who it is you're sitting on the bus next to, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, it's really the reason I say this is because I've had people sit on the bus next to me, and when they got off, they looked at me through the window and waved and winked, and I got the cold shiver up my spine that was somebody else than a normal person, you know.
See, you get thrown off here in South Carolina because any neighborhood you drive through, people wave to you all the time, which I'm not used to. In New York, they throw you the middle finger.
In Iowa, you get that all the time, Michael.
Yeah. So they're always waving you, and there's this one guy who's out. When Autumn will go get the kids from school, and this guy is since 2010 I've seen him out there, and you drive by and he's preaching and he's waving to you, and I'll tell you, he's nowhere. He's just standing in front of a trailer. I mean, and the guy's there, he looks really strange, but then he's gone. You come back and he's not there no more, and I wonder sometimes.
Exactly.
Well, you know,
I had a lot more going on here than anybody's ever thought of.
Yeah, I had an encounter with, I would say it was my guardian angel when I was younger. I was 8 years old, and I went to run across my street, and my family was standing outside talking to each other. We had a playground that was right across the street from where we lived, and I went to run across the street to go play at the playground, and a car was coming up onto me really fast. I mean, it was zooming. And as it approached, it got within just a few feet of me, and suddenly there was like this weird streak of light almost, but it wasn't really like shining light, but it was this streak that came out of nowhere, slammed into me, and threw me backwards into the waiting arms of my mother, who was in the middle of just getting ready to start screaming because she saw this car coming.
It might have been Flash.
It saved my life, and I don't know what exactly it was, but the only thing I can attribute it to is that it was not my time to go. And so they came and they intervened and said, "You're staying." You know, It was not the car that hit me, you know, because I had no damage to me whatsoever. I didn't even have a bruise from this thing literally throwing me 20 feet plus, you know, backwards at a huge rate of speed. You know, no damage to me whatsoever. It was one of the weirdest experiences that I've ever had.
I joke, but that is amazing stuff right there. I mean, and these things happen all the time to people.
Yeah, they do.
Gentlemen, I have to say that I think both of you are supposed to stay here for a while longer because you're making the biggest change in everyone's lives just speaking on the air at night, you know. Michael with his program, Ira with yours, and just even this evening, our conversation between the three of us, I think, is waking people up and giving them pause to reconsider themselves and their own purposes here on the planet Earth for the short little wink in time we call a lifetime.
Yeah, and if nothing else, we're making people think. So they have to at least think about it.
Exactly. So. And well, thank you guys. I wanted to just get out as quickly as I got in here because I have to go to work this evening. But I wanted to thank you both for all the interesting conversation this evening, and tell you, keep up the good work, guys.
All right, David.
Well, thank you, David. It went into directions I didn't expect, but I definitely enjoyed the conversation.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. Thank you, David. We would love talking with you tonight.
All right. Well, have a good night.
All right, you too, my friend, and don't work too hard. He does the graveyard shift.
Like us.
That's my favorite one. I mean, if I had a choice, anytime I've worked anywhere, I loved working the late hours.
Yep. I was a third shifter for many, many years.
Yep. I used to try to get the job, night watchman at the cemetery. I always wanted that job. I wanted to have stories to tell, but I never got hired for it. If I had, it would have been the perfect job for me. I probably would have had my heart attack a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I hope he's right. I hope we are going to be around a lot longer. I'm enjoying this. So, I'd like to stick it out for a while. I want to see what happens. I want to be a part of it, even if it's horrible. And I think it's probably going to be at some point for a while anyways.
Well, getting to the Akashic Records and the karma thing right there, we as human beings, we've done a lot to earn what we've got coming. That I think is something that people don't really consider. We have allowed this world to run into insanity, and it's just getting worse. And I think that what people don't recognize or realize is that by our sitting back and not doing anything about it or even talking about it, we really have earned what's coming because we have done nothing to stop it, basically. We've done nothing to change it.
And what's sad is if it was just us, you and me and, people our age and older, I'd say, all right, whatever comes, okay? But there's a lot of innocent people on this planet that have nothing to do with the stupidity that we have gotten to. And it's up to us. I mean, if we want them to have a future, it's up to us because they don't know any better. They're being raised in this environment now. They think this is normal, and it's not.
Yeah, and especially when you toss in the fact that, at this point in time, 1 in 50 kids are born with autism. And by the year 2025 or so, they're estimating that half the population will be autistic. And that right there, I mean, that is a half of a generation that is, lost, really. What's going to happen to them? I mean, these are literally as innocent as it can get.
Well, I would even go as far as saying they're not lost. They've been misguided. I mean, really, they've been sent the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're to blame. So, when we see cities falling apart and we see the youth getting in trouble all the time and shooting and killing each other, and we're seeing all this, we are partly to blame, folks, because we've sat back and we've allowed it to happen. And
precisely.
And people, one time I said this, Ira, and some guy got so angry and he wrote me, "Oh, dare you blame us?" And I'm like, "Oh, what are you doing? You're wasting ink writing me, right? Okay, well, what else could you be doing to change this? But you're not. You're bitching to the wrong person. I mean, all I could do is what I'm doing now. And you know what? When people gather in the streets and they're ready to change this, I'm with them. I'm with them 100%. I'll broadcast the whole thing as long as they let me. But it takes all of us. I mean, I can't go out there right now and change things by myself. They'll arrest me. But when there's 100 million of us, well, that's a lot of handcuffs. So, you know.
Well, and if you think about things too, the way that I look at things is that protesting does nothing,
Well,
it
just
really
like
doesn't.
voting does nothing either. And people keep saying, I don't vote for this one, don't vote for that. I'm sorry. You know what? I have been somebody who's voted because I used to say, well, if you don't vote, then you're giving up that right. We know it's fixed, but you should at least vote. But you know what? I changed that. I always reserve the right to change my mind, and I have. It's like, there's not even no point. Just the hell with it. Until you're ready to get up and make your vote count, why bother? I'm not going to bother this year. I'm getting my voter registration card, and I'm going to wipe my behind with it. That's what I'm going to do with it.
It's about as useful as it is, really.
Yeah.
When it comes to protesting, just as an example, we see people going out and protesting, and they think that that's making a difference, but it really doesn't make any difference at all. You look at what happens at your average nuclear plant, and there's 100 people that are standing out in front of it protesting the fact that this nuclear power plant is there. that power plant is going to be there regardless of whether those protesters are there or not. They don't care. They don't care that they're there. And in fact, a lot of times it's good for PR, because in the business, any kind of publicity is not bad. So, what they should do if they want to be more effective with things is to take those 100 people or gather the thousands of people that are out protesting at nuclear power plants all around the country, gather them together, gather their resources together, gather their money together, and try to create a new energy source that we can get rid of the nuclear power plant with.
Well, we can't do that until we get rid of the cabal. We've got to get rid of the cabal. That's the bottom line. They've got to go before we can change anything else, because they're not going to sit back and say, oh, look, they're changing our power structure. Oh, well, we'll sit back and watch. They're not going to do that. So it starts with them. And then once we take back control, I mean, we're not stupid. We know that we don't need nuclear power. We don't want that. We don't need fossil fuel. We don't want that. There's other ways of doing things, which is not really fossil fuel anyways. But
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, you're right on the right track. This all goes right back to what I was saying earlier about going back to the origins of things. Look at where the baseline is. What do we have to deal with at the roots of the problems? And that's where we need to put our aim, not at these branches and leaves that are around. Yes, GMOs are a problem. Yes, chemtrails are a problem. Yes, the government is a problem, so on and so forth. But there's a root to all of that. There's something that's at the root of all of this that has to be plucked away before the tree can be, handled. Well, otherwise, you're just going to cut the branches off, and a new branch is going to grow. And
they're changing our environment. I mean, they're literally changing our environment to go along with all their prophecies and their this and their that. It's all about putting you into fear so that you will give in and allow them to take more control. And it's the God's honest truth, folks. They are changing the atmosphere on this planet. They're doing it. I mean, it's being done. Don't kid yourself. And, this is serious stuff. So I say if we don't do something soon, and I mean very, very, very soon, then it's probably going to be hopeless. I don't know.
It literally has to be right now. There is no future. It's right now or it's never.
Like
That's
Rocky
seriously
said,
what it comes down to.
There is no tomorrow.
Yep.
You've got to act now, because it is. I mean, I go for my walk. I went for my walk today, and I'm walking, and I'm just watching them chemtrail the hell out of the sky. And I'm thinking, but we just go on like morons, and we let them do it. It's we instead of waiting for our neighbor, maybe we need to smack our neighbor across the head and say, "Hey, jackass, you see what's going on up there? Well, go in, get your firearm. Let's change this." Maybe we need to march to the airport and demand an answer. What the hell are you doing up there? And here's the thing: if there's 50 million of us, what are they gonna do? They're gonna try to give us answers. They don't want a 50 million person mess. They don't. Not right now. It would interfere with their plans. So now is when we got to act. If we don't do it now, they're not going to care. But once the nuclear bombs start flying, forget it. So.
You got it right. Exactly. It's a matter of us. I mean, look, okay, when it comes to the chemtrail thing, they're terraforming us right now, right here, right now, above our heads. There is no
the planet.
Doubt about that.
Yeah.
They are terraforming us for whatever purpose that may be, whether they have the best of intentions in mind or whether it is some alien race that's down here trying to do it. It doesn't frickin' matter. What matters is that they're doing it, and we need to stop arguing about the semantics of whether or not it's aliens that are in control of it or the government that's in control of it. It doesn't matter. It's happening. That's the problem. We got to stop that.
You want to know how we find out who it is? We start from our reach, and we continue to reach, and you go one by one up the ladder until you get to the top. And guess what? If getting to the top takes us to ET's getting an ass whooping. It's that simple. We need to put a stop to it, whoever it is. I don't care if it's an extraterrestrial or an extra idiot. Whatever it is, we need to get to the root cause of it. And I'll tell you, I don't see a lot of hope because, Ira, a good example is Detroit. Look what's happened. People are finally stepping up there because, but they waited until it came to their door. Someone came to their door, turned their water off. All right.
Yeah.
So let's not wait until they come and turn things off and tell us we're not putting it back on until you comply. And then when you don't comply, maybe they'll start going, they'll take the guns. And then once they get the guns, then in the internet, they'll go, around the corner, they'll hit a couple houses, and I won't know until they get to my door because I won't be able to find out because, Fox News and CNN don't cover that stuff. They're not going to tell us.
You got it. Exactly. And that Detroit is a perfect example of all of the things that we're trying to say with all of our different shows. You look at Detroit, that is a third world country within the United States.
And
it's owned by the United States.
Like I said, eventually it will come to your door. I've said this, and it's coming to your doors now. And see, people, let's not wait. Go ahead and put your American Idol on DVR and watch it when we save the world, or after we save the world. Right now, I think we got some work to do, folks. We do.
We certainly do.
But I don't anticipate people are going to do anything again until it comes to their door. So, therefore, we better prepare. It starts with all of us. Here we go again with that. It does. It starts with me. It starts with you. I'm going to worry about me and my family. I'm going to make sure we're as prepared as we can be. And I'm going to hope to God that the rest of you follow suit. And that's all I could do.
Same here. That's the best that you can do. I always say, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. That's just the way that it goes, and that's how I live my life and how I teach my kids. You have to rely on you. Don't rely on anybody else.
That's right. Well, Ira, we're just about out of time here, and we actually made it through the night. And unfortunately, our guest dropped off on us, but we'll get her rescheduled. As a matter of fact, we'll get her rescheduled here probably by tomorrow. I'll have a new date for her. We've got some good stuff coming up the rest of the week here. Hopefully, everything works out. We're supposed to get thunderstorms all freaking week long, and I hope it doesn't keep waiting until 9 at night to hammer us. But
yeah,
I know. It's my God. But anyways, we got a good week planned here, and then next week Ira's going to have a good week planned with you as well. And Ira, I've got to get with you tomorrow so I can hand over some information to you and things like that. And so we got a few things to do tomorrow, you and I. So you're prepared and not surprised next week.
Sounds great to me.
Because we've got you a lineup, as a matter of fact. I think, as a matter of fact, Dr. Turi will be joining you as well on the 8th. And he'll take calls and do readings and stuff like that. So that ought to give you an easy night for one night, because I know he loves to talk. So it'll be good.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again, Ira. I appreciate it.
Oh, you bet, Michael. Have a great night.
All right. You too, my friend. Everybody else, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tomorrow night, what do I have tomorrow night? Oh, tomorrow night's Matthew Petty's back with us. And I'm going to make sure he's got a good line, folks. I promise you. Because that's one thing that bothers me more than anything, and if you've been listening to this show for a while, you know where I'm going, is the audio. When the audio sucks, I get mad. I don't like it. I like good audio. I like it because, it's 3 hours of my life. So let's let people understand what's being said. But anyways, Matthew Petty tomorrow. Patty Greer on Thursday. Jackie Barrett on Friday. And then I'm off, on the weekend, I'll be off to Rochester, New York for a filming and to visit some family and some friends. And much deserved, much needed week. I haven't had no time off the show like that since we went to the 10 states in 7 days. And that was in, I think, 2012 we did that. Yeah, 2012 was the last time I had a week off. So I might not be off the whole week, though. It might only be 4 days, but I'm assuming I probably will not be on the air next week. So with that, folks, keep your eyes posted to the sky, because you never know what you might see. And for our station manager and program director, Ira Robinson, our webmaster, Jolene Robinson, all of our moderators in our chat room at latenightinthe midlands.com, and of course, all of you keep your ears posted to this broadcast because you never know what you might learn. Good night, everybody.
The psychic realm can read the dimension that's closest to the physical field, and what is often offered is information in, I will call it almost, it's not static, but it can leave the recipient choiceless. Here's what's coming, here's what's going to happen, and it's not all the time, right? Some of the time can take away that choice. And in the field beyond that is, I don't know if I can say it, is all potential. And the beings of light that I work with do not take away our free will, do not create forms of fear, are completely about empowering the one before them, and their language, their heart-centeredness call forth within the individual their best. And in that they can align to the choices and decisions they find most empowering to themselves. So I guess that's kind of how I would respond to that. And even, when we look at intuition, intuition is the Akashic realm can affirm one's intuition, where one has that inner sense of knowingness, and that's what we're ultimately building. So they're like a team, if you will, when that level of clarity is being requested, or even greater understanding then that is accessible by the individual. So what more can I know? What is there to know that I'm not tapping into? But again, they don't take away, they don't disempower. They are not, the records are there actually to explore oneself, one's personal journey, one's soul's evolution, one's past, present, and potential for the future. It's a dynamic that one can go to when one might be at a crossroads, or needing that extra, it's history from there. But what I've discovered, and it's interesting how everything kind of dovetails one thing into the other. Realize that what the Chinese speak of is this alignment of heaven, human, and earth. And the way I was looking at this trilogy, these three worlds, is, feng shui is actually about the earth energy, the study of the earth energy and how it impacts and influences human life. And the heaven energy, I've associated really with Akashic Records soul readings, where we're bringing in this other dimension and perspective. And it's also, to them, our astrology chart. So I've actually studied and learned Chinese astrology, which is a very unique system that amazingly is interwoven actually into feng shui. It's the only system I know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did I lose you? I sure did. Either I lost her or lost me. I don't know which of which. Oh, I don't even know if I'm live right now, folks. Let's see what happened. I don't know. Until somebody tells me something, it's nights like this that I just like to just close the shop and say to hell with it all. It's just, you try to get things done right. You try to, and it's just one thing after another. I'm live. Oh, all right. Well, now that the show's already been destroyed, we'll try to salvage what we can. I'm telling you, it's getting worse here. You watch. It's gonna knock us right off. Let's see here. Yeah, I lost the guest, so I'm trying to get her back. So hang on with us for a moment, folks. I'm trying not to go into a rant and fit. Trying. All right. Oh, man, that ain't good, folks. I'm telling you, I'm sitting around a whole bunch of windows right now, and it is not good. All right, let me go ahead and get her on. I'm not editing this either, Dark Matter, so, you're getting it as is.
Level. So when I access the records, I do it with the sacred prayer. Now, this prayer is actually a very unique word combination that has scientifically been proven to show brainwave patterns altered from the natural waking state, which is beta, to alpha and theta. So the more attuned one is to being in that brainwave length, that those other dimensional realms, the more expanded one can become, more attuned one can become to that field. So over time, I have expanded, shall we say. I teach this, and people feel that shift within them. There's when the doubting mind, when the fears are allowed to relax through just breath or just calming exercises, this greater field can be accessed. So everybody can do this. I'm not special. I'm not unique, although I am gifted and have a talent and have worked at it, for it, shall we say. To access, it's really a language of light. It's a language that we know at a soul level and bring forth through the symbols of words to convey messages and relay information. But the first level of it truly is about the energetic information, even prior to the words being used. Does that make sense when I say that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So
is it like, does it go right hand in hand with psychic abilities, or is this something totally different?
I would have to say it's different. Let me see if I can figure out how to explain why.
Two different channels?
Well, it's, how do I qualify this? My experience, right? My experience, I can only speak from my experience. My experience of the records is such that it is held in a field that is beyond the mind's desire for a certain outcome. So it's beyond the what will happen to the potential of all that can be. So many times, hello.
Good evening, Kelly. This is Michael Vera with Late Night in the Midlands. I want to welcome you to the show. How are you?
Great, Michael. How are you?
I am doing just fine, as long as the weather lets us talk tonight. So far, so good, but I'm glad to have you here.
Well, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, you bet. Well, I thought a great place to start would be with a little background, and what got you involved in this to a point where, Akashic Records.
In all that I do?
In all that you do, yes.
in all that I do. Well, I guess it all began. I'll fast forward from birth to about 29, I guess. That's when Saturn return hit apparently in most Western astrology charts, and my life was changing, and going through a separation and looking for more peace and balance in my home and in my life and with my children, and actually was introduced to feng shui first. Mm-hmm. And it piqued my curiosity and got me moving in the direction of energy and healing and transformation, among other things. And it interested me enough that I wanted to offer that to others as well. So I started studying from the perspective of being a consultant, etc. And then years down the pike, I was actually teaching for my first master teacher, Grandmaster Raymond Lowe. And in my class, one of my students had just finished taking an Akashic Record training. And I'd never heard of this before. And she asked if she could do a session for me. So I was a little skeptical, wondering, who are you and what are they? And she answered to enough of my curiosity that I said yes. And during the session, my Akashic masters and teachers and loved ones requested that I actually take the training. So it was unplanned, so to speak, and I did. And that was actually right after September 11th in 2001. And that journey took me into not only reading my own records, but then reading the records of another. And I guess you could say, in a way, it's there you are again.
Well, hello. Yeah, I think we lost you there. Just as a lightning flash.
I have no idea where we were.
Well, you were talking.
I was on astrology. I don't know where you are.
Yeah, you were. I believe you were talking about the training that you had, and I think it was right about that time. I think you did get into astrology, and then that was the end of it. So
I'm energetically working on the weather patterns happening where you are, helping to calm them down. How's that?
Well, I hope you succeed.
So, just to pick up where I left off, so to me, what's fascinating about the astrology piece is that our personal birth data directly is reflected and has a relationship with our space, our living environment, based on the directions and the orientations, etc. So it's a really unique system that is added to what others may, to the classical system of feng shui. So that was fascinating for me to learn and discover, and I enjoy bringing that level into consultations that I do. And then there's just one last piece, so to speak, which I call Akashic Reiki. And it's working with the actual energy body, the physical body, and that's the third component that's really coming forward now in my practice, in my life, working with people at that level. One of the things I call it is soul integration, but it's also the transformation of all the physical level, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. So that's kind of everything in a nutshell, where I've been and what my journey's looking like so far.
Well, at what point, I'm kind of probably going to jump around a little bit here, but the Akashic Records fascinates me, just the whole idea of it. And I'm wondering, at what point, how did that come along? How did you discover you're able to do something like that? And what exactly are you doing when you do it?
Great questions. We all have a natural birthright to access our records. In the capacity, actually, I'll say that I do. Because the truth is, we are our living records. They are in our DNA. We are in connection with them all the time. The perhaps the greater question is, to what degree are we interacting with them on a